Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm gonna get right into it. You guys know what time it is. It's time for episode 7 of that LCO show. And you can see that we have a guest today. So our guest is one of the most storied mid laners in Oceanic history. You know, known for busting out some weird picks, not so great picks sometimes, but you know, definitely some niche picks. We have Jerome Chungy Chung joining us today. Jerome, thank you for joining us.
No worries, sir.
And Calvin. Sorry.
Yeah,
don't
okay.
mean to
I
not
was
introduce
just
Calvin.
thinking, man. You just forgotten me. Come on. Well, I mean, this has been what? It's been a few weeks now since we had a third person on our podcast. But as per usual, when we have a third person, that means questions.
It does. It means the LCO hot seat. So I'm going to get up a minute timer here, Jerome, and you have 5 questions. Now, I've done something quite nice. I've made a lot of the questions related to you. Okay?
Yeah.
So if you know a lot about yourself, which I think you do,
Okay.
you'll be fine. Also, sorry if there's any background noise. I did tell my parents I was filming.
You're fine, dude. You're fine.
We're fine. Okay, let's get into the questions. So, 1 minute timer on the clock. Jerome, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, the timer will start at the end of... Oh, shit. It started now. The timer will start at the end of your first question. Okay. Which 2 teams were in the quickest game in LCO history?
Kanga and Pentanet.
Do you want to revisit that answer?
Wait, it's false?
Yeah, it's false.
Oh. Can I research this?
More recent... No, you can't research
no,
it, dude.
of course not.
That defeats
Yeah,
the whole
I don't
purpose.
know, by the way.
know.
Okay, it was
I don't
Chiefs
know,
and
I don't
Mammoth. Chiefs and Mammoth. Who has
Oh,
the
true.
highest KDA on Kanga?
Oh.
Fuck. Only?
It's Lionel with 1.6. Who is the player with the
So-
most double kills in the league? I'll give you a
Us.
hint. They're from a top league. They're from a top team.
Raise.
Yes, nice. Okay. Which champion is the most picked mid lane champion?
Oh, fuck.
15 seconds.
Is it Vex?
It's Rise with 15 picks. What is
Holy-
your all-time win rate as a pro?
Fine?
Yeah.
Oh, like, is it like
All-time win
40%? 41%?
Bit higher. Okay, we'll give that to you. Timer just ran out.
Close enough.
It's
Close enough.
44.4%, 32 wins, 40 losses. Which, honestly, for being on Mammoth
Good.
and Kanga, it's not too bad.
That's true. That's true.
The order,
on,
the order year definitely bumped it up. That's for sure. Anyway, so I think we got 2 out of 5. You tied with Arsh, I think. I think Rusty is still the holder of the most questions, right? But you know, that sort of brings us to our first talking point.
Oh,
Kanga,
how fast did Chiefs beat Mammoth?
16 minutes, 58 seconds.
16 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was literally like last
How
week.
do you not know that, dude? That was like,
I-
oh
I
no,
remember, dude.
he hasn't
I
watched
remember.
any of the games.
The guy has not
He
watched any
hasn't-
games, man.
He hasn't watched any games.
Like the guy
Uh-oh.
says Vex is the most picked mid laner, man. When you're a mid laner, you know that Vex isn't the champion.
Calvin,
that,
you're not his coach anymore.
You're right.
You
You're right.
can't
Oh my
absolutely
My
flame
bad,
him,
dude,
okay?
My bad.
Ah.
All right. So our first talking point, Jerome, is Kanga,
Yes.
and I don't know how much you can say or you want to say, okay? Because I understand that you know stuff goes on behind the scenes that you may not want to share publicly, but I just want to get your inside perspective on you know why you decided that the best choice would be for you to leave the team.
So I probably won't go into like specifics. I would just say like
Yeah.
in a broad sense. Like a lot of internal and external reasons, I think, is what made me like decide to leave. I just think like there's expectations on players and management that need to be held, and they just weren't being held.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I was wasting my time staying on the team when like we aren't actively looking at improving the right thing.
Yeah.
And that's why I decided like it wasn't worth my time continuing, and I just had to like step down.
Absolutely, and I can imagine that. Okay, actually, I'll phrase this as a question: how much did like you know the games against Mammoth and Gravitas that you guys were meant to win, right, in the eyes of the public? How much did that affect the team, like the team morale and how you guys approach the game?
Like leading like in the team, like we put ourselves like I want to say high expectations, but like or high standards, but like at somewhat of a standard, like we were meant to like win those games, right?
Oh yeah, you guys were a playoffs team for sure.
Everyone
100%.
expected.
Yeah, and just like our gameplay is not it, and well, like that's all I can say. Like
It's
just
not it.
Yeah,
I like it.
like a lot of our fundamentals are just wrong. They're not there, and when we lost those games, like I don't know if I can say this, but like I just blew up. Like I pretty much blamed the team on like why we lost, and yeah, like a week later, I started getting benched. Fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
can't really say much about that one.
No, yeah, it's absolutely a tough situation, and I completely understand. Like, yeah, looking when Calvin and I even looked at your team at the start of the split, we're like, these guys are for sure going to be playoffs contender. Like maybe even having pretty deep runs into the playoffs as well. So I think.
6th place.
Okay, no, you're not allowed to say that.
Okay.
You're not allowed to
It's
say
okay.
that, man. Come on, we're having a moment here.
No. Look. It was me. It was me trying to like make some controversial discussions, you know, so that people can actually like sort of tweet at us and just leave comments, right? Obviously, Chungy being one of them. But anyway, yeah, I mean, yeah, like I think the team at the beginning, right, like just on paper, it definitely looked like a playoffs team. To probably everyone, right? Like the top side alone.
Besides their
is
mid
good enough.
laner,
It's
I
good
think the
enough.
mid laner was the weak link on paper. I think that Chungy guy,
That's
like,
true.
if you ban Ari,
Facts.
he's gonna just int, right?
Facts.
No, hey, actually, props for your Ari game versus Peace, by the way. That was like,
That's true.
I think that was like the most 1v9
You know-
game of the LCO
You know,
we've seen.
I did not scrim before that week, and yeah, I was the first game like on stage after like a
No
week or two
scrims,
of
and
not
then you
scrimming,
pulled that out.
and I pulled
Maybe
that
no,
out. Yeah.
no scrims. Maybe no scrims is the way to go. I think
Absolutely.
Gravitas had barely any scrims, and they had some pop off games.
Yeah,
too,
nobody's
huh?
looked really good. Anyway,
Also, I
okay.
just want to say, like, it was mentioned on like the coach interview. I forgot what game it was. I think it was Kanga versus Order about only situation. Like,
Yeah.
people can see like Drake already gave like people the answer on our problems if people like look into it.
Okay.
Because like
That-
I'm like
I mean,
I
it
shouldn't
was.
be able like I shouldn't be allowed to say it, but since he already said it like for me, I guess. Like, if you just look into what he said about that interview.
There we go, guys. Do some reconnaissance work, and you will
I mean,
find.
to be fair,
the
it
answer.
is quite an interesting interview.
I don't remember
It's the
it.
game. It's the in-game interview. It's the in-game interview
It was
where.
why I only stepped down to like poach.
Now- Yeah.
I
So
see.
it's yeah. So the TLDR is it wasn't a team decision to bench only, but only decided to bench himself to move on to a coaching position.
Hashtag free only.
Now, hashtag free only. I had on my coach stream I had hashtag justice for only, but okay, it's the same thing. But yeah, I mean, if you sort of like read between the lines, then guess you can see some perspective with inside Kanga.
Anyway,
Anyway,
moving on from Kanga, since we now have all of our playoffs teams locked. So for those of you watching at home, we have currently in first place we got Chiefs, Peace, PGG, Order, Direwolves, and those teams are locked. There's no way that any other team is going to be able to make playoffs. So, Jerome, what do you think of Chiefs?
Yes.
Because, in my opinion, Chiefs now, and especially these last couple of weeks, have sort of shown that they are becoming the Chiefs that everyone sort of expected them to be at the start of the split.
Yeah, so prior to this week, like I wasn't really liking the way like Telly has been playing, like lane phase in general. I do think like their top jungle bot lane, like they're pretty solid. Like I do think they're like becoming like the best in their roles. But yeah, watching like this week and even last week, I think Telly's Ari against Order, like he actually played like really well. So I do think that they do have like the best chance of winning. this
Yeah.
week.
God, Calvin's going to kiss you because we recorded an episode last week that didn't go out, and Calvin was saying every single week before this, Tally's been playing laning phases is so terrible, but this week he absolutely smurfed and he stepped up. So yeah, Jerome.
this is
literally
why- this is
reiterating
why
what
Jerome-
Calvin said.
this is why Jerome used to be my mid laner, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Why do you think he started so many games? Yeah.
True.
Okay.
Well, I mean, yeah. Chiefs is also the only team that locked in the playoffs, like the top half of the playoffs brackets, which means they will have the second chance. I don't really think they need to use it, but it's always good to have. And that leads to sort of like that will probably lead to like what we want to talk about next. But Chungy, which other two teams do you think will also make that top bracket?
It's like just judging from like the current gameplay, I would say Peace or Pentanet. Like, I do want to say Order, but I feel like they're just like very limited at the moment in terms of like just playstyle, certain people's playstyles.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with. I think PGG is another team that's sort of been having a playoff surge, almost, in that they looked they looked bad for the first bit of the split. Like Belcon actually just looked like he was griefing a lot of games, but I think now they've sort of found their footing a little bit more. Maybe Chippies coming in, gaining some mass
As
with
a
the
player,
team.
or
Sorry?
as a player, or
No, as a coach. He's coming as the coach.
Right.
He came in person. He's now coaching.
yeah.
So they're a team that has really stepped up, I think, and I sort of agree with your assessment of Order there. I think that out of all the top teams, Order looks like the least scary to play against, right? Like, I look at that team and I think that even though you have Kevy and even though you have Kisei and Puma, like, there's just not... There doesn't really seem to be that sort of, like, explosiveness that you have from these other teams.
Yeah, and I think I said it somewhere before. When you look at Order roster, right, you would think that like without all the imports and everything, that roster is probably one of, if not the best roster in the league in terms of just individual players, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have Biopanther, who's consistently been probably top 2, top 3, top laners in Oceania for the last couple of years. Kevy looked like, I mean, the guy sweep through the MVP last year, right?
Yeah.
And then
It's because you
Kisei
played with
looked
such a good top mid duo, though. Like, when you play with that good solo laners, of course, you're going to look good in the jungle.
True.
Oh no.
Especially when he has a Gallia TF.
Oh, you know what?
Team.
You know what?
Yeah?
You guys are now content creators.
Yeah.
And Kevy is still playing, okay?
Hey,
Anyway,
that's not where I thought you were going with that, man. I'm still on the roster, okay? I could play. I could be playing scrims right now, and you wouldn't know. Okay, settle down there.
that is true. No. You guys are great players, okay? But and then you got Puma, who had the most MVP this split, despite Order being on a 10-7 scoreline. And then obviously Corporal coming back from LGL, etc. So like, Order as a team, it's surprising to see them performing like that. It's surprising to see them being that one, like the least scary team, right? In my opinion, I do agree with Chungy that Daiwas probably is more scarier because you won't know what Kiyose picks, and then you won't know that like they almost beat Peace this last week, right?
Yeah.
Should have been Peace.
Yeah, I mean they should have beat Peace, but like they almost they were so close, and it's just one of those things that you like. It's one of those aspects where like Direwolves can surprise you, but Order can't.
And let's talk about that for a second, because like we talked about Direwolves potentially being one of those scaling teams, right? Where they're all right in Split 1, and then Split 2 is where they really start to challenge for playoffs and like playoffs runs. But I'm looking at this team, and I genuinely think that they'll be able to take games off almost every single team in playoffs if they go up against them in a best of 5. Like, I genuinely think, and I can't put my finger on it, right? Like, is it Kiyose playing out of his mind? Like, partially, yes. Like, I think Kiyose is probably top 2 mid this split, right? I would make the argument for best mid right now. But I think that the whole way that they're playing as a team isn't really what you're meant to see from rookies, right? Like, they're playing with such a cohesiveness. And I think that they're definitely a team that can surprise some of the, typically more experienced orgs.
Yeah, I mean, like, in terms of best of 5s, right? Like, usually it is the more experienced team. The team with basically, like, better skill overall will win out, right? But I don't count Direwolves out, right? Like, it's very... I think if you look at the matchups, individual matchups, like, versus Order, Pentanet, Peace, and Chiefs, you would probably expect them to at least end, even if they lose, right? At least to end, like, 1-3 or something. Like, they will take a game or two of every single team, and which is like the scariest part of this roster.
And Jerome, I wanted to ask you this because we've talked about Kiyose a lot on this podcast. I want to get your experience as a mid laner. How is it playing versus him? Because like not only in lane, right, but also the weird picks that he likes to bring out that sort of change the way his team plays.
Look, not gonna lie, I haven't played against him in quite a while, but I do feel like, I guess, threatened if he's on like picks like LB or something, because I think he's pretty good at like lane manipulation on like champions that do require like gank setups and all that.
Yeah.
So he does like challenge you in lane quite a bit.
Okay, and I think that's obviously helped by Gudo, right? If you look at Gudo's champion pool, it's almost exclusively champions that just want a level 3 gank. Like, Volibear, Xin, Lee Sin, Jarvan. He literally only picks stuff that will gank you at level 3 and can play with his mid laner. So I think that those two together are actually a really underrated mid-jungle duo.
So this is my problem with Order, because you have Kevi and Kisei.
Yeah.
And like individually, they're both like probably the best like in their role, right? But if you put them together, like my problem like with them is one, like I don't think one will give for the other. If that makes sense. So like Kevi like won't, sacrifice himself for Kisei, or Kisei won't sacrifice himself for Kevi. Whereas I think the other playoff teams, like their mid will either like, sack a wave or like sack a few CS. Or the jungler will like sack one camp to gank, for example.
And that's a really interesting point, and something that I wanted to bring. It's a bit off topic, but like, you know how they always say like almost every single championship team you see in almost any sport will have your star players, but you also have the role players. Because if you have like literally for example, we use basketball. I know Jerome big into basketball. If you got 5 like all-stars on your team, right? 5 ball hungry players, right? How are you ever going to score if every player is just playing for themselves, trying to get those ISO opportunities and trying to score 1v1? And I think that is something that we're sort of seeing, and what you brought up, Jerome, is that like Kevi and Kisei, sure, they both thrive when they have resources given to them, but as a mid-jungle duo, you can't both have all the resources on the map, right? Like, you do need to be sacrificing. And I think one example that we see of that going right is like the Peace Lisa Appy thing, right? Where Appy would almost permanently just shove waves move. He wouldn't go for like, taking camps or anything like that. He'd always be looking to move with his jungler, get his jungler ahead, and then have that work back to him. So I think that that's actually a really good point, and it is something Order should look into, if they are looking to really threaten the top teams.
Yeah, and I think that now that leads to Peace as well, where I do think that, it's also a Lisa thing, right? Like, Lisa is not one of those junglers where he will tell his team, wait a second, I want to farm this, and then I'll come, right?
Yeah.
Like, you will always see Lisa somewhere, on the way to ganking a lane. And obviously, like, Peace have some shaky games over the last few weeks, and I really don't know whether that contributes to like, the experimental picks or like the experimental gameplay or anything. and that's a topic that I kind of want to like explore a little bit, just in a sec. But yeah, I mean, it's something that Order is severely lacking, and we've been saying this since week 1. And I think, like what I tweeted a couple weeks ago, it's frustrating to watch Order. Like, it's getting to a point where watching Order is actually frustrating, because you go into a game, right? You look at the draft, it's either Order's draft doesn't really fit their comp, the week where Kevi was on Jarvan and Puma was on Caitlyn. I looked at it and I'm just like, this is so not Order, right? Like, you don't really want to put Kevi on Jarvan because this guy wants to farm. Like, this guy does full clears on Jarvan or something, probably. And just not something that you want to see. And alternatively, you also have the games where Order would draft, and then you would just like you go again, like whatever draft they go against, you would just expect the game already, and it's just something that's very annoying to watch. And but anyway, the next point I want to bring up is Peace, because of their recent performance, and the question of whether having these like experimental gameplay or picks once you lock in playoffs is worth it, because that's something that Omer and I kind of did last year in Order, right? And you guys had
Kindred.
experience on that.
Kindred.
So, no, okay, we didn't go to that extent. Peace definitely did with the Kindred and Shyvana. Like, I questioned the Shyvana as well.
I like Shyvana. I want to respond to this because I don't like it. I do not like doing experimental things on stage, and the reason I say this is I'm a big believer in heading into playoffs. You should just be playing the League of Legends that you're going to be playing for playoffs, right? And if you're not winning with that League of Legends, then you need to change what you're playing, right? You can't just be like, okay, we're going to spam pick whatever champion Beats wants to play this week. We're going to pick Renata here, right? Like, I think playing a game of Renata in scrims is fine. Maybe testing it on stage, yeah, but like, you can't be having games where you're just playing Renata and then Kindred top and then whatever. I think it just, like, you need to be able to have a standard game and show that you can still win, because they played against PGG and they lost, right? Yeah. And their draft was like, sure, it had a few weird things, but for the most part, you should still be wanting to prove that you can win versus that team. So I'm not a big fan of it, Jerome.
Oh, by the way, no, I was gonna say, when I say Kindred, I was talking about Puma's Kindred last year.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
You don't remember?
Kindred
Yeah.
Taric is
Yeah,
a fucking
yeah.
menace of a
Yeah.
bot lane, by the way.
Okay. That's a little different. So like Kindred top lane and Kindred bot lane is like two different things. Even Kindred mid lane is a little bit of a different story compared to top lane, alright? I really don't understand the Kindred top lane, to be honest. But anyway,
Yeah,
like, what do you think?
I've always felt like Graves has been a good answer into Kindred, even in the jungle, right? Like,
right?
It's a pretty fine matchup, so I don't know if it would be a counter pick or anything. But anyway, sorry, what were you gonna say, Calvin?
I mean, I just wanted to see what Jerome thinks, because he is the one that sort of suffered the most, right?
About
like those experimental.
picks.
Yeah.
I'd say like coming to playoffs, I'd say you can experiment like a champion that can do well against like current meta. Like, for example, I think Renata is like totally acceptable to play, like leading into playoffs, because she just came out. Like, you're testing like to see on stage if she's, you know, viable against current support champions. Champions like Shyvana, I'm honestly not too sure. Like, I did see it in LCS, where I did pick it, but where it fits in the meta, like, I'm honestly not too sure.
I think the reason Shyvana's been seeing so many picks is just because it's like one of the best scaling tops. Like, it sounds stupid, but when you actually get to the late game, it's actually unkillable. Like,
yeah, I mean, the champion is pretty busted once you hit that level.
yeah,
16,
but no one knows. But no one knows it, right? Like, it's just popped up in a couple games, and then now people are starting to think like, oh, okay, they pick Graves or Gragas, which can pick this champion that literally will never die in the front line and still does damage somehow, despite us building Frozen Fist and Demonic Embrace and Warmogs. Like the most op shop build ever.
It's just weird. Like it's just like it's like what is that little website thing where you sort of like randomize your entire rotation?
Ultimate Bravery.
Ultimate Bravery. Yeah, it's kind of like you go into a game and you just like went on Ultimate Bravery and then you're just like, okay, I'm gonna pick me 6 items, right? And then you just look at it, you're like, yeah, like Frozen Frozen Gauntlet, is that? I think that's what it's called. And then yeah, and into Warmogs, so you're just like, what the hell's going on? And then Demonic
and then
Embrace,
a Demonic Embrace, because why not?
Like, I was watching the game and I was literally asking chat, like, guys, what does a Blasting Wand and a Ruby Crystal build into? Like, Ryla's no longer built from that. Like, what the hell was that? But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's such an off-meta pick. I can see it working to some extent. But I think like these picks are mostly being picked because it's unexplored. Like, people don't know what to expect when you play against it.
Yeah, and that's one of the benefits of having extra practice time coming into playoffs. Like, knowing your locked playoffs is like in scrims and stuff, you could be like, okay, we're gonna like have a whole day where we just play Kindred Taric bot lane, right? See how it works, see if it fits, and then you actually can prepare quite niche counters that you bring out in the playoffs games. Versus teams that haven't prepared for it. Anyway, that being said, Jerome, I want to get your predictions right now, 1 to 5, how teams are going to end playoffs. So you can start at the bottom. You can start with the team that's going to get eliminated first, and then go all the way up to who's going to win. Who do you have in at 5th?
Like, are we assuming like these teams, like the standings right now, that's where they're going to be at the end of the split?
Yeah. We'll say that right now.
We expect
is
it,
the bracket.
So yeah, like so that sort of goes back to
Chiefs have a bye. PGG versus Peace. Order versus Divers.
Yep. Right, so I'd say Order's going to be Divers. So Divers will be 5th.
Yep.
Peace versus PGG. Like, I want to say PGG will win the BO5.
Okay.
So then it'll go Peace versus Order.
Why do you think PGG will win the BO5?
Like, I just think, like, just due to the experience and like, I feel like I don't know. Like, I just think recently Peace has been like
They've been underwhelming. I agree.
Yeah, they've
They
been
have been
underwhelming, yeah.
underwhelming, yeah.
Like I think teams have like I guess picked up their playstyle, and like it's easy to like break apart like what they've shown already.
Okay.
So I do think PG will win that. And then Peace vs Order, I will say Peace will win just due to just versatility. On Peace, like I think it will just match whatever Order does.
Okay. So we got Direwolves 5th, Order 4th.
Order 4th.
Who's going to win the rematch? Oh, actually, who wins Chiefs
Chiefs
versus
versus
PGG?
PGG. I think Chiefs will win that one just due to just better players. I think Chiefs individually are just better players in like the whole, or like against the whole like other 9 teams.
Okay.
So, and then the rematch, Peace versus PGG. I think Peace will win.
Wow, okay. All right, man.
He's just trying to say.
All right, man.
Okay, like he spent like an entire like 2 minutes just to say that okay, Peace and PG is a coin flip. That's literally what I'm getting.
The issue
I
with
think Peace
Peace
will
is
win.
experience. A week later, they will have all the experience they need to be able to beat PGG in a best of
After
5.
listening to PGG, yeah, the following week they're gonna realize their mistakes and then they're gonna
Right.
beat PGG.
They're going to have that Nirvana moment where they just
Yeah.
figure out how to play it. Okay.
Yes, and then grand finals, Chiefs will win.
Okay, so we have
Okay.
top down, Chiefs, PGG. No,
No,
sorry,
Peace.
Chiefs, Peace,
Peace.
PGG,
PGG,
Order,
Order,
Direwolves.
Marvels,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, I will write that down and I will keep up with it.
I mean, it's
See you in
literally
2
just the
weeks.
current
Later
standings.
weeks. Yeah, I
See you
mean,
in 2 weeks.
It is quite
it
literally.
is literally the current
current.
standings. Yeah. Okay.
Jerome spent like an entire 5-6 minutes, like this entire segment, just trying
He's
to sort of-
just reading off the list, man. He's just trying to figure out how he can make the bracket work so it's just in order of standings right now.
But like I do think Dials do have a chance against Order. I do think they do have a chance, but
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
it's like it's hard to say that Dials will win. So I do think Order will win.
Okay, interesting.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Next week we have a couple of huge games, and I'm gonna ask for your predictions again, Jerome, because
Yep.
you're a guest. We need your opinion. First game that I think is gonna be really big is Peace versus Order, because Peace has been underwhelming, and I think if Order want to show in this last round robin that they are, one of the top 3 teams, they need to beat Peace in this game.
Yeah. So like again, it all matters. Like it all comes down to the 2v2, and until Order like either fixes it or just somehow manages to like steamroll the enemy mid or jungle, I still think Peace is just going to win that game. Like it could be close, but I just think Peace will just win, just due to like just fundamentals, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think, mid jungle, if that goes badly for Order and like Appy and Lisa, still are probably one of the best duos there. I think if Kevy and Kisei can't get ahead, it's pretty hard for Order to win games. The next game we have, I think I'm kind of going to preach your answer here, given we just talked about the standings and we just talked about another Order game, but this is PGG versus Order. So sort of a similar narrative to our Peace game. Like if Order goes 0-2 this week versus both these teams, it's not a very good sign for them.
Yeah, so it does look like a just a hard week for them. I don't know. It's like I think it's more playable for them against PGG than Peace because
Okay.
like I do think like Balkan is like literally a coin flip player. Like he just
Yeah. Yeah.
engages like randomly, and then there's Yuri, which I think like he's good, but I think he's like he has less impactful than Appy, like in terms of like just roaming and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I do,
Sorry, go ahead.
so I do think Order do have a chance. Like I do see them winning if they have a winning draft.
Yeah.
But I do think it's like slightly PGG favored.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I think that I actually agree with your point about PGG being like a better matchup for Order, just because I think that, like you said, obviously Balkan can int the game away, but also like Kevy and Kisei have looked a lot more stable versus that mid jungle duo compared to the likes of Peace. Like essentially every matchup we've seen of Peace, besides the game where they Oh, they haven't beaten Peace, have they?
I think
They beat
Peace,
PGG.
I don't think that.
I think both
Yeah, they
games
beat
versus
PGG.
Peace, either Kisei or Kevi looked a bit shaky in those games. So, yeah. Our last game is a preview of Chungy's playoff bracket. So we have Peace versus Chiefs. I have my feelings, given both teams' current forms, but I want to know what you think about this, Jerome.
Yes, I do think Chiefs will win. Like just given the form at the moment.
Yep.
Like I do think if Peace improves, like whatever they do throughout the week in scrims, like they do
Or
have
they
a
just
chance.
fall back
but...
to the early performance, you know.
Oh yeah, or fall back to their early
Yeah.
performance. Like I do think Lisa and Nappy, their 2v2 is better. I think if if Tully plays the way he's been playing, like he can hold on his own, then the 2v2 will will get, I want to say counted, but like just matched.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do think.
unless Tully goes back to his old ways and inting lane phase every time.
Yeah, I do think the mid lane is the important part, right? Because on top of Tally improving and holding on his own, like they both also share a lot of common picks, right? In the Ari and in the Rise, you know, it's something that it's probably some that would just determine the outcome of the game. And but you know, one little game that I do want to highlight, just before we sort of move on, is actually Direwolves versus Pentanet, because if Direwolves, like we said, right, like Direwolves is a team that can surprise everyone, right? And if they actually manage to pull the win against Pentanet, then which team making it to the third place, like to the upper brackets, all of a sudden becomes really, really close, right?
Yes.
Because they would almost be guaranteed tied with Order, as in Order will be tied with Pentanet, and then Dio is just one game behind, and it's just so close.
Assuming Order beats like Beast and PGG though.
If Order beat Peace and PGG, it's going to be very hard for Darwolves to catch them. I think the realistic way for Darwolves to catch them is they pick up a win versus PGG, Peace, Chiefs, like one of the top teams that Order lose to, and then they have to beat Order. If they do that, they'll be tied with Order, pending that all the other games go even.
Yeah, and
they have head to head because they won their last game. So they're currently 2 games down, but I definitely don't think we can say like without a doubt that they're locked in. One other thing is PGG and Order are literally like next to each other. Like PGG are 11 wins, Order's 10 wins, and they play each other this week. So if Order wins this, right,
they'll have head to head.
they're tied and they have head to head. So it's just dependent on how the rest of their matches go. So I think, look, I want to say right now the Chiefs are more than likely going to lock first place. Obviously the guaranteed upper bracket, like you said before, Calvin. I'd be pretty confident putting Peace up in the upper bracket too, but I think apart from that, like the 3, 4, 5 could go anyway.
Yeah, it's a run for third place, right? Basically, right now.
Yeah.
For the last 2 weeks, that's basically the whole narrative.
Absolutely. Well, I think that sort of brings us to the end of today's episode. Hope you've enjoyed a bit of a shorter one. Thank you for putting up with our hiatus last week. We had I think everyone was sick. Calvin was sick. I was sick. It was just rough.
It was just me.
Yeah.
It was just
Jerome
Chungy,
Jerome was sick. But yeah, no, Jerome, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for spilling the beans on Kanga and getting us some extra clicks. Can you just do like a really shocked face for the thumbnail?
No.
Do it right now.
No.
Okay.
Yes, just do it.
We'll get it from afterwards. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys back here next week. As always, that LCO show on all socials. Thank you so much. Have a good night, and we'll see you later.
Peace.
Bye.